So that's the first flag that in the real world, a lot more often than not, things don't get better with what they call mining, which is general resource extraction. And gas drilling is not exactly like metal mining, but they're all similar in some ways. And that's where we really need some economists to jump in the picture and look at this harder to sort of tell us in what ways might gas drilling be different, in what ways is it not different than these other results. So there is a group that's looked primarily at energy results. This is oil and gas mining out west. Headwaters Economics. I highly recommend some of their publications. But again, we got to ask the questions, who are they? Who are getting the money? Where's this all coming from? So they have occasionally do contract work, but this particular publication came out of their general funds. Their general funds are basically federal agencies like the Bureau of Land Management, the Forestry Service, some charitable foundations give them money, and some state funding. Montana, they're located in Montana, so the Montana legislature gives them some money for their general sort of operating budget. This was a report that they chose to do. It was not contracted by any individual agency, and so they drew on their general funds to do this. So it was really a staff project. So they have a staff of about 4 or 5 different economists. Most of them have come out of academics. And what they did was do a comparative study. Again, they looked both over time and over different areas, some that had more gas drilling, some that had less, and compared those otherwise comparable communities in terms of how they fared, given that one did more resource extraction and one did less. The data, they said, is publicly available data. It's all federal data. Anyone can get it. They did not use any proprietary data at all in generating their report. So here's what they did. So they looked out west. The yellow are what they call energy focusing counties, because they broke it down on a county by county basis. Linda, ask her for that. We know the answer. So so they looked at energy focusing had to have a certain level of economic activity in the energy extraction area. That make them energy focusing. And if they had less than that, they were non-energy focusing, which they call the peer counties. Peer counties had to have similar population densities, similar amount of rural nature, that kind of thing. And so this is the answer to sort of that question about how the country as a whole did. And people have described this as the tortoise and the hare sort of thing. So the solid curve is the total personal income growth for mean income growth in one of the energy focusing counties. And during this period of the 1970s, it shot through the roof. And I don't know if you guys remember the 1970s, but that was, gas lines and gasoline prices went up, and all energy prices went up, and it was an extremely profitable time to be in the energy business. Somewhat after that, there was a huge boom, a bust, where things started to go downhill. And at that time, the tortoise, those that weren't going big time into energy extraction, caught up and then surpassed. And now out here, we're into another sort of boomlet in the energy field. And so now those energy focusing counties are maybe starting to catch up again. And so the real question is, over time, who wins? And over this period of time, it's the non-energy focusing counties.
Bill, 1981, at the precipice of the decline, that was the year I was laid off from Morse Chain. My job was to make extended pin units for oil rigs. And the parking lots were totally filled at Morse Chain at that time. And after that, you can see what it is today.
Is that when you decided to go with Saudi oil? At some point in time, you left our reserves and left.
I'm not an expert on that, and if someone else is, I'll have them jump in. We have always, for a long time, been importing oil, and I believe that the growth in imports is more related to the fact that domestic sources were running out. But I'm treading on water that or oil that I don't really have a solid footing on, so I'm not going to,
Bill, does that graph come with standard deviation bars, or?
No, this is straight out of their report, so that's how it comes.
So no standard deviation?
Right.
Okay, so, but sometimes those lines,
Yeah, no,
it'd be interesting to see what the standard deviation was there, to see really what the difference was.
Right, yeah. How significant, by the way, is this difference down at the end?
Probably insignificant, but would it keep there probably?
So when they looked at these different counties, okay, across the board, that was one result in terms of income. When they looked across various measures of economic growth, here's what they found. That in general, those counties that had what they call energy focusing, put more of their effort into using energy extraction for their economic development, wound up with less economic diversity than those other peer counties. They grew more slowly, the net economy, and that was only personal income we looked at. They looked at the economic growth. Those counties grew more slowly. They wound up with a greater income disparity between high and low wage earners. The average workforce was less well educated, and they found that those energy focusing counties had less ability to attract investment and retirement dollars. And the big point that they say for all these things, these are all factors that tend to hinder economic growth. The better educated your workforce, the more dollars you can attract into your community, the less wage disparity you have, the better your prospects are for continued economic growth. So they're basically saying, this doesn't bode well. This doesn't sound like it was a great plan. So here's some of their results. Okay, so they've looked at, here's 5 different categories: total personal income, employment, average earnings per job, population, per capita income, during 3 time periods. Because the whole point about energy extraction or resource extraction is you tend to have boom and bust. And we're going to get to a paper on exactly that topic next. But there are periods of great growth and then periods where things collapse, and periods of great growth and things collapse. And the question is, is it better to do that? Because, hey, the times are great when you're living high on the hog. Or is it better to be the tortoise and just kind of plod along and build diversity and build a more solid foundation? And these guys clearly think that the solid foundation is the way to go. And this is the data they tend to use to support that. So yes, in that period, they had great growth from 70 to 82. There was a huge collapse where they had terrible negative performance compared to peer counties. But the thing they wanted to point out, and this is part of what I think is most particularly important for upstate New York, is in the most recent boom, from about 90 to 2005, the results have been remarkably mixed. They're not seeing this great, huge improvement. And what they tie that to is the fact that in the intervening time, in those several decades, the economy has gotten overall more diverse, and income from other things like tourism dollars, from people going hiking in those in national forests rather than just harvesting the national forest, that those income streams have become very important to the economies. Being attractive to retirees, is important for their economy. So it's a different kind of economy. It's a much more mixed economy than what the West had in the 1970s. In other words, the Western economies are probably more like our own now than they were in the 1970s. And so this mixed result is part of what causes me great concern. Because they're finding that in the middle of what is now a new energy boom, as they drill lots of gas wells out in the West, it's not suddenly buoying up all of the boats in the Western economy. No, if these numbers were all up here, that would be good.
Well, no, you won't have a bust if you don't have the boom.
Possible, but if you never have the boom, I mean, they're doing the drilling, they're doing the extraction, but they're not seeing economic benefit from it. Well, they're having not a growth in personal income. They're not getting a growth in employment. So they are indeed having higher earnings per job. So some things are positive, some things are negative. Okay, good question. We'll continue.
But nothing is strongly positive.
Nothing is strongly positive.
And they're losing population.
And they're losing population.
That's weird.
So maybe people don't want to live there as much.
If you lived near those places, you would move away too.
Yeah. I mean, key question, why is it like this way? So most of what I'm doing is prescribed. I'm just telling you what's in the reports. Why is it like that are very good questions. I'm telling you a little bit what they're inferring in the report. There's a lot of whys that need to be asked at this point in time. That's exactly what we need to handle. And it's the whys I want people to start looking into.